Good afternoon, everyone. This is Welfare and Welfare All Stars, Nick and Neo and Wellswan on tnsradio.ning.com and Scottish Sovereigns on the Land. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in. We've got an interesting show planned for this afternoon. We've got a few things that we want to talk about. I'm in both chat boxes today. I think Nick is too. Neo, maybe. I haven't checked, but we are around. So anything you want to shout about, please do. We're going to kick off, as usual, with our news items. Then after that, we're going to... there's a few things we want to talk about, and I think we're going to kick off with ATOS. OK, so my news story today is... Right... Fury over £1 million bonus for chief executive of controversial sickness benefit test company. The private firm behind controversial sickness benefit tests had been slammed for awarding their chief executive almost £1 million in bonus payments. International company ATOS are contracted to reassess people claiming sickness and disability benefits. Heart attack and lung disease victims are among those the firm have assessed as being well enough to look for jobs. According to ATOS's annual report, Chairman and Chief Executive Thierry Breton received $1.95 million in 2011. Half the amount was his salary and the other half was a bonus. He really deserved that, didn't he? He received $1.83 million the previous year. Ruther Glen and Hamilton West Labour MP Tom Gretek said, "People will find it hard to believe that the boss of ATOS sees fit to reward himself with millions in bonuses while thousands of sick and disabled people in Scotland suffer. It will sicken those who have been through the ATOS process to hear the company crow about their expertise in healthcare. Thousands of people have suffered because, time and again, incorrect decisions have been made on the back of ATOS's assessments." ATOS declined to comment on Breton's bonus. I just want to read, that's the article, and I'll post the link in a sec, but I just want to read a comment, the first comment at the end of the article. The company has no expertise in healthcare. It claims expertise in assessing work capability, which is quite a different thing. We know that the assessment is unfit for purpose, with GPs and the MBA, as well as the sick and disabled, calling for an end to the process. ATOS don't even employ real doctors. Some assessors are nurses, some are occupational therapists, few are real doctors. The company is used by the government to reduce the money sick and disabled people get. It profits by doing that. It profits while at least 38 a week die directly or indirectly as a consequence of the inadequate assessment. And the government drive to take money from the most vulnerable in society, only to give it to wealthy profiteering monsters like this, who prey on the misery of others and exploit their vulnerability. This is disgusting, inhumane, and needs to stop now. OK, that's my news item. Nick, hello, and Neo, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thanks. I think just on that last item, you said on the number of people dying and all the other incidents, there has actually been another one. And I don't think I have a link for it at the moment, but they're saying apparently there has now been official, the government has admitted there's been a suicide attempt.
The government have admitted that publicly?
They've had to, really, because this was a guy who actually was cutting his wrists in the job centre.
Jeez.
But so far, apparently they're saying there's a memo gone round, and they're saying they must be sensitive. I don't have all the information on it, and I can't pull a link up at the moment. I've got some other stuff separate to that, but this is a case of this is an incident that's happened within a job centre. Apparently, the gentleman had been on the sick for quite a long time, had some serious mental health problems, and hadn't been adjusting well to job seekers allowance. And I think at some point they were threatened. I think he was told he'd have to go on the work programme, and he had no choice, and he then offered them an alternative choice.
Yeah, I've got that. I don't know, I have that memo right in front of me. It's a print.
Yeah, I think it was in Birkenhead Job Centre.
I'm trying to look, but it was, I'm taking it initially off this Black Triangle website, and there's a DWP memo on mental health and suicide risks of sickness benefit reform. Yeah. I don't know. Would you like me to read the memo?
Read the memo by all means. This is what the official line is so far.
Yeah, okay. Okay, supporting ESA customers, and this is an official DWP memo on paper. We are now through our first month of delivery of ESA contributions, issuing letters, making and taking calls, and making decisions on revised benefit entitlement. We wanted to write to you for 2 reasons. Firstly, to say a huge thank you for coping extremely well with this additional activity and ensuring that we are, as ever, highly professional in our response to a change. ESA contribution forms an important part of the welfare reform changes we are making a reality. We also know that you are making often difficult changes which some of our more vulnerable customers may take some time to accept and adjust to. In all of our centres, staff have been doing their absolute best to help customers through this change and support them with their claims and future decisions. Thank you and well done. Secondly, we wanted to ask every member of staff to ensure that every customer contact is handled with the utmost care and sensitivity, taking account of the claimant's circumstances. Every day, we all play a crucial role in the lives of the claimants we deal with, whilst it is never easy to make a judgment about which is the exceptional case from the thousands of others we handle on a daily basis. We must ensure that during our interactions with people, we all remain alert to the possibility of having to deal with a claimant in a more the writing's a bit fuzzy here. With a claimant in a more empathetic way, because of the effect of the changes we are introducing may have on them. Where there is difficulty, we must take the time to properly understand the claimant's circumstances and reassure them that, as a department, we will help them by talking through their options or signposting them to other sources of support advice in a way that meets their needs. As an organisation, we strive to put in place effective processes and guidance and ensure that all our people have the appropriate training. The complex nature of our business, however, means that sometimes, whilst procedures are followed correctly, something goes wrong. The consequences of getting this wrong can have profound results. Very sadly, only last week, a customer of DWP attempted suicide, said to be a result of receiving a letter informing him that due to the introduction of time-limiting contribution-based employment and support allowance for people not in the support group, his contribution-based employment and support allowance was going to stop. We are not yet clear on the full circumstances of this case and cannot be clear on what factors have contributed. Incidences of this kind are thankfully rare, but it does remind us of the responsibility we have and influence we have over the lives of those we provide help to. Sometimes ensuring that a claimant simply understands changes to their benefit and following a process is not enough. The ESA Legislative Changes Project issued a wide range of guidance covering the change, the ESAC guidance, which links to generic guidance on vulnerable customers, subject also covered in the L&D made available for the change. Last paragraph. We will be reviewing the circumstances of this case in more detail to establish what more we might have done and to put in place appropriate measures to ensure that we are better prepared for dealing with similar situations should they arise in the future. If you feel need additional product support or guidance or whatever aspects of handling ESA cases or indeed any benefit, please do. And it just goes on to the end and it has 3 names on the bottom of this sign. But I mean, it's an admittance to a problem. But of course, it's all pretty much just rhetoric, and from their inside, just kind of it just seems like almost like a slap on the back letter, just saying well done, well done, well done. Oh, we got a slight problem, by the way. I mean, they just get a little paragraph just stating that someone did commit suicide. But I mean, the way they kind of they put it in this memo, from my point of view, is like it's just a one-off. Well, I don't think so. I mean, I've seen quite information that people are going through real problems, and the suicide rate is just really it really is getting a bit just wide. So I don't know what else to say really. I mean, I don't know. It's just wrong, isn't it? I mean, no one should be in that position. Nobody should be in the position where they feel their only way out is to kill themselves. It's just out of order.
Well, I thought...
Sorry.
Go on, Nick. No, you go first. Go on.
I think it's the point of, the fact is it's had to happen in front of them for them to admit that. Mm. It's the other angle that there are plenty of other people. It's been in the news. People know other people. There's been local news that doesn't particularly get out that's come across to us. It's been going on a lot more than that, but they're not going to be prepared to be tied down to that. I think there's other researchers saying things like that. I mean, we have another thing on Chris Grayling. There was something about some surveys being done that basically wasn't saying it. I think it was they were doing some reviews on the work programme, which was basically saying it's pretty rubbish. It's not really functioning as it should. You know, the promises they're making is that they're giving people experience. And that is about all they're giving them.
Well, I thought...
And they want to expand on that whilst they're being told at the same time in review that, you know, it's not really working, but they're pressing ahead. And I think we've got a news article. Chris Grayling has basically come out with, you know, this is so reassuring, we're carrying on. They sort of seem to be to hearing their own message. You know, despite what people want to tell them, you know, we talk a lot about benefits, but there's a lot of other people who are going to be joining similar realms. You know, we've had it from last week that there are working people who are just sliding. You know, they're sliding into poverty as things get away from them. There are some people at the top end who may well be quite well insured from this, but it's starting to work higher and higher. It's not just the people at the bottom end, but they are getting the worst of it.
What I thought really stood out for me when you were reading that memo out, Neo, and hello, by the way, hi, is the fact that they kept indicating that it was a one in I can't even remember what you read out, but one in 100,000 customers that may have this issue. So they are basically, that says to me, I'm sure that's how it feels to everybody, that they don't treat you, they don't take any issue that you've got seriously. They don't give a shit if you've got no money, if you're sick, if you're disabled, because, as they say, it's only one in the very few that is going to, you know, slash their wrists in the job centre. Yeah.
Well, that's like what Nick said. I mean, it took the guy to do it, you know, perhaps in front of them, you know, for them to realise. Because, you know, they're just working in offices. I mean, you know, what do they see each and every day? I mean, I suppose they will just see just people coming in, leaving, people coming in, leaving, and they're sort of giving their orders and giving their, you know, even opinions. You know, these people, the staff inside these organisations, and they don't see. That's like I said before. They don't see the consequences of their actions and you know, what goes on outside. You know, it's like this little cushy realm, and you know, they just don't see that, or they don't experience it because it's not. You know, it's almost like there's a brick wall being built up between us and them. You know, I don't like the whole us and them thing, but it just seems like it's there, and there's no. There doesn't seem to be much of care where there really should be. I mean, there's a lot. There's all this wording and all this rhetoric and all of this language, but in reality, you know, it just doesn't seem to be there at all now. You know, I mean, Christ. I mean, I used to hear. I mean, I don't know if I should mention this, but I mean, in the past, I mean, when I was working, I used to hear stories about. Well, it's like some people would get so upset that they wouldn't kill themselves, but they'd end up going into these places, let's say, armed and showing their frustration. You know, I used to hear stories about that. It was a rare case, but you know, those things used to happen, and I always kind of wondered. I used to say, well, why were they so angry in that? You know, and they really didn't. You know, they kind of had attitudes about it. But I used to think, well, surely they must have gotten so upset to the point that they had no choice but to do something, you know, I mean, completely wrong, but still, you know, the frustration, desperate. Something desperate to try and get a message across that, you know, maybe perhaps, you know, you're not serving me the way you're meant to be serving me, and this is what's being created, you know. So look at yourself. You got to look at what you're doing to people. You know, so all of that stuff, and it just seems to be getting really out of order. Really, kind of, like there's no order almost, or whatever. There's certainly no care.
It's a desperate person. Well, no, it's that one desperate person that actually slashes their wrist in front of them to make them get a memo go round.
Yes, because it must have been a big shock. It must have been the shock. Yeah, it must have been the shock. Absolute shock, really. It's like I said before on one of the previous shows. You know, they make a decision, and let's just say, whatever your situation is, let's say you owe money to someone, because when people get, they have no money or they become poor. Let's say they borrow it from unscrupulous people, let's say, and next thing you know, they're on their ass and they want their money. And let's say they make a decision in the job centre and you no longer have any money, and then you get a bit of a, let's say, what shall we say, punishment, that sort of thing from those you owe money to. And what can you do? I mean, I said you should go, you go in the job centre and show them what their decision has done. I don't want to, I really, I don't want to be, be pushing anything here like, going out and getting hurt or anything. I'm not trying to push that or anything like that. But you know what I mean. It's like if they're making decisions and and you're going to get hurt, they need to be shown that. They need to be shown.
They are already. I think you take one angle. Even if say you're not, say you're in a better class of environment. You don't necessarily have to talk to people in suits who might cause you physical harm. You might be able to do something online or fill out some forms.
Maybe.
And do something and get a loan. You're still being made to pay for that.
Oh, yes.
By another way, they don't cause you physical harm. They will just, feed off your resources. Anything they offer you in that is not a solution.
Uh-huh.
And I see that. I think a lot of people will see that leaflets through the door of, you can actually improve your life by, instead of having lots of little loans, come and talk to us and have one big loan.
Yeah.
But you still have a loan and you still have to pay someone off.
That's right, yeah. And lots of little loans mount up as well. And all those little loans have compound interest. And of course, let's just say the job centre let's say you get a sanction. Next thing you know, let's say you're not getting any money for 6 to 3 months. And, you can't pay these bills. Next thing you know, what's coming?
Well, I think when you get to sanctions, you're going into a different territory. If you've had someone, if someone's been unemployed for, the general thing now is if you're unemployed 6 months, so you've had no work for 6 months, you've been living on benefits, so you're not going to have much resources unless you've been lucky or put a lot aside. But then you become over 6 months and you're long term, and then you're a real problem. And if they do something then, you have no money. The money that has kept you alive, that's kept you fed, maybe helped pay the bills if you've had enough to move that around sensibly and make sure it's paid that way. And this is not a case that, you can't, and, I think they're talking in things of icy stories and they're saying of people in work and they're saying there isn't any money at the end of the month. There might be nothing in the pot at the end of a month.
Yeah, that's just shocking in itself,
Yeah.
That even people who are working aren't getting wages. Aren't getting paid, yeah.
Well, if you're on benefits, that you can at least get some help, and a lot of people don't realise that you can, get some help with your housing costs, your council tax costs. If you are on a low income, that's never sort of shouted about, is it, particularly?
But you have to deal with that admin work and
while you're at work
as well.
Yeah, while you're at work.
So if it goes wrong and you've got a job, will your boss give you a day off to sit in the town hall?
Well, yeah. No, they won't, will they? Very doubtfully. Okay, should we go to your news story? Unless there was something else.
I was actually not particularly a news story because I think it's something that we overlook quite a bit. There's a wonderful blog post I've seen. I'm not going to read it all because it's quite lengthy, but I'll post it up. It's from a guy called Johnny Void, and he does quite a bit around some of the benefit stuff, but not too directly. But he basically has written this wonderful article, and it really is quite a picture of life in somewhere in London. But I'm going to read the last part where he gets to the point, because it's so well written, it's very poetic.
Okay.
It just says, there is little round here that couldn't be improved with more money. The opposite is happening as libraries close, rents soar, wages stagnate and benefits are cut. The very poorest pay every day for the crimes of the rich. Those who are in debt owe money to legal loan sharks, like the Spiv who recently wrote a report advising the government to make it easier to sack people. The stream of lies that come from the government, that the poor are poor because they are feckless or lazy, just reveals the cosseted world they were brought up in. Their view of the very poorest is driven by poverty, porn television shows, or right-wing tabloid newspapers, rather than any direct experience of the people they would no doubt step over in the street. They cut and drive people further into homelessness, poverty and despair, but we still survive. The poor are poor because the rich take more and more. Greedy landlords push up rent whilst greedy bosses force down wages. Unemployment and workfare is used to undermine the few improvements people have fought for. Land is sold off to buy yuppie flats no one round here can afford. And supermarkets strangle the few remaining locally owned shops. Whilst pensioners freeze in their homes and worry about surviving the winter, energy company bosses and hedge fund managers fly around in private jets paid for by profits stolen from those with almost nothing. Sick and disabled people, many of whom have worked hard for years, see benefits they were promised and had paid for slashed to fund tax cuts for millionaires. It was bankers, not benefit claimants, who broke the economy. The ferocity of our children's anger, as flawed and often tragic as it was, has already been displayed. That rage is not confined to just the young. Every pale-faced shyster in Savile Row suit who lectures us about our lives from their suburban mansions only fuels the fire. As the hundreds of thousands with nothing left to lose turn into millions, that rage may yet come to the front doors of the pampered elite. One day we will take this world back. And I think that just about sums it up so neatly and precisely.
Didn't it just?
I think it's the case of, it does concern me that we seem to be seeing an increasing of everything. There's pressure coming from everywhere now. And as more and more people start to, in a sense, fall through the gaps, there will be more people who don't see they have options. You know, options we might be able to sort out, or other people on TNS or in the bigger community that they don't have contact with. And violence is not going to sort it out. But a lot of people will choose that road.
Or when you get that angry and you feel that cornered and you feel that defensive, I'm not advocating it, but I can understand getting to that point. And yes, we should be there for anybody.
Yes.
We all should be, not just us. Everybody should be there for everybody.
We owe it to each other.
Yeah, less of the sort of, the bitching and sniping. It's, that's not who we are. I didn't think that's, who any of us were. So, I hope that we can all work together to help each other regardless of, where we are or who we are. And I know, I'm just going to shove this in very quickly. So I know it's got nothing to do with ATOS or anything that we were talking about, or, being sick or disabled or poor, but it's around, I talked about free cycle quite a bit, so I'm just going to very quickly say that I'm really thinking and wanting to set up a free cycle type thing on welfare, and I'm hoping that, we could use TNS. Hopefully I'll speak to Vin about it, but I know we're all over the country, so we would have to think about how it's run, but not just for stuff, not for just material things, for support in whatever way, or if you've got a skill, there should be some kind of bank of I don't know, ideas. I know that was a stupid, one of those St. Paul's things, wasn't it? It was called Bank of Ideas, so, but it's a good concept. That's what, I would like people to be able to join up and give stuff away that they're not using anymore, or help each other in a way that they possibly can. If you've got a skill, if you're an electrician, or Jack just paved the garden. If you're in London and you need something done like that, then, we could help you. Maybe you don't have to offer anything back, but if you can, then, a bit of a barter system, but, do things for people because you can. So we will be setting this up, so I know that you guys are up for this too. And it would be nice to have some opinions. So I was just sort of throwing in that bit there, and we'll go back to what we were talking about, because there's loads of things I actually want to speak to Nick and Neo about, and they're around sort of doctors' assessments and ATOS. So, sorry, what were we talking about before I butted in with my free cycle stuff?
That's okay. I was going to say, you mentioned about doctors. I wanted to do that email we've had in.
Yes, please do. We also wanted to give let people know how, this just isn't a 2-hour show. All of us spend a lot of our time on welfare.org, whether it's on Skype, having private conversations in Skype on the help group, whether it's talking to people that have been referred to us, spending time looking at emails, answering them. We are busy, we are helping people. We do what we can, and we offer the solutions that we can. And if there is any feedback that you'd like to give, if there's anything that you want to see that isn't being dealt with, or you have any issues, please tell us. Up for anything that's constructive. Okay. The ATOS. No, you want to read out that email, and we have been getting some fantastic emails, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, we have some wonderful people actually in the Skype chat. We have I think there's some email exchanges still bouncing around. There's plenty of ways to contact us. I mean, the one thing we nearly always say, just to cover this, a lot of what we do is personal cases. I think one of the first things we would always say is, all right, don't just rely on us. If you can find someone local, you can talk to someone face-to-face, by all means do that if you can do it. And I know we've discussed this at length, that, with the best intentions in the world, there are some great advice centres out there, but then they're always quite busy. There's a lot of people out there involved in these things. But we've actually had a gentleman in. I've talked at length. He's going through some stuff to do with ATOS. Now, I won't go at length into that because he's dealing with his affairs. But he's actually written an email into us, and he wanted to raise something as an extra issue. I think I'm trying to find a place to start, because he does have some comments that I can't really put out on air. Here. The government are trying to use the strike action for their own purpose by openly divulging what GPs get paid compared to other people, such as the average Joe. And David Cameron, they are trying to turn the public against GPs, etc. Only the fickle will be allowed to be used by the government, and their hypocrite stance of following non-qualified people to be assessing people at ASOS and not doing anything at all, and then taking a swipe at GPs, etc., are qualified people who at least care. We have seen the actions of DWP and ATOS at first hand, and I am someone who has had his case prejudiced from the start, and they have messed with the wrong guy. But we have also seen how the media is being used to make people who are entitled to receive benefits look like scroungers and make it look as if we do not receive help. I always believe that no matter how harshly a person treats me, I will always learn a lesson, and in most cases it is never to treat anybody like I have. The GPs are now in the same boat as us. The media is bashing them from all sides. The propaganda machine is being used to brainwash the public. The GPs committee has helped us out last month or so, rightfully, by saying the ATOS machine is a disgrace and the WCA should be scrapped, and I believe it is now our turn to repay the good deed by helping them. I would appreciate it if the following email is read out on the show today and we show them support for the action they have taken. Their email address is info.gpc@bma.org.uk. GPs do more good than Dave Cameron does. Do not allow the government to turn the heads of the public when we all know the strike action is not against the public but against the government. And I was very pleased to read this out from, this is one of our people who's been discussing things at length with us. I know has some serious health issues. We wouldn't particularly want them to be on the show if they're engaged too closely with the government. We're not sure how well this is monitored or what's going on. And we appreciate everyone who's come forward, given their time, given their experience. We ask that anyone who feels they want to, we will always deal with it in confidence. No one is expected to be phoning in and talking to us live. We'll happily discuss things in private.
And what's been so wonderful about this particular person is that they've given us so much information on how they've been dealing with their issue. They have, given us everything that we could possibly need to follow what they are doing, following that path. And it's a brave step for somebody with, I really, really do admire him. I really do.
Yes, there's a lot of amazing stories out there. I think, we were discussing one about, I think, the girl Karen, who's recently passed away.
Yes.
I'm not aware of anything she did particularly out of the ordinary, but the fact was she was coping with a serious list of illnesses. Again, these aren't people who just have one or two minor ailments. These are people who've been sick for a long time. One or two illnesses has turned into three or four. They are trying to manage all of that and deal with government paperwork.
Yeah, incredible woman, and there are incredible people around, incredibly brave people that are willing to, when it's so hard to do, you've got to be so together to face these people, because it's a battle. And I don't know, I wanted you to talk about in particular, because I think this is so important that everyone deals with a claim right from the very start and thinks of it as an appeal. Because when your first contact with them is so important, and what you put in your forms, you're not going to remember what you put 3 years before, and all that is used to build up. You can use that to build up your appeal case should it come to that. And I know it's something that I had never really considered using as a tactic, but it certainly is something that I would advise people to do. And I know it's something that you can talk about in more length than I can, because you've given it much more thought.
Well, I think the general logic of it was, it was just a general response to what's going on. You're looking at a company, a private company, that's actually failing to do its job properly in 60% of the occasions. And these are the ones that get overturned. Now, my other analysis says, all right, if there's other people who don't have the energy, other people who react badly and don't end up making it through that appeal process, they're probably counted as successes. So the reality is they're probably failing a great deal more than 60%. And I think unless you have some serious sort of medical issues, you have to be really, really prepared to expect that they are not going to assess you properly, and you have to start, gearing up to that thing from the moment it starts happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do have issues. I know there's been issues around certain things to do with matters of dealing with consent in terms of dealing with doctors. I know people have been discussing that. We have discussed it at length, and it's something that I actually went through personally. The only reason I would even think about talking about here is actually having walked through some of that previously. The issue of actually thinking that you're going to Atos and seeing a doctor and having the things that you would expect to have in a relationship with a doctor of, I think one of the major ones is informed consent. The other one, again, is patient confidentiality. None of that exists there because they are not doctors. They're healthcare professionals.
Very, very big difference.
It's an exceptional difference. It makes all the world. I know we have had another great member who's been quite active in our chat box and Skype. Posted one up. Now, we've only been here 3 months. He actually managed to pick up something from back in November, and it was something about this term of basically saying there'd been some sort of dispute with these healthcare professionals and they were actually, I don't think they were on the verge of striking, but I think there was some serious falling out with their management. But they were actually in negotiations with management via a union. They weren't in negotiations through the BMA. They weren't in negotiations through any sort of professional body. They had a union. They had union membership, so they had union negotiators in there. You know, I'm saying, you know, this was something from November last year, and I'm saying, you know, start to see what the perspective is. When you look at the paperwork, initially, it will be talking about healthcare professionals. It will talk about an assessment of your capability for work. You know, these are things that, in a way, can be useful as long as they stay that way. The things I've actually managed to work out so far, we've had some wonderful information come in. We've actually managed to hear a medical assessment and actually hear some of this take place, is that even during the assessment itself, you see, I think even I dropped a word in there, and you have to be so on the ball and so alert, because if that healthcare professional may well at the end say, right, I will finalise my medical report, they've actually just done their little magic trick. Their little magic trick is suddenly now that's a medical report. It's not a capability for work assessment. It seems to have suddenly acquired a slightly higher status. And if you can't catch those sort of things happening and make sure you object and push it back down, put it back in the box where it belongs, it's going to be a problem, because then you may well end up in an appeal, and you may walk into the appeal tribunal and they say, we have your medical reports. And you know, you can't let that slide again. It's a work assessment.
Not a medical.
It's not a medical report.
Yeah.
It's not medical evidence, because where is the medical procedure that involved that?
Well, I'm not being funny. It's like getting you or me to, you know, well, not maybe you or me, but somebody with some, I don't know, training around the body to carry out. You're asking somebody to, you know, lift their legs. How can you tell in that assessment whether or not somebody can walk, or if there's something wrong with their spine, unless they're a specialist in bones or in the back?
Some of that information is actually in their manuals. I think where we've seen some of this stuff in their manuals, that your assessment to walk, certainly by the healthcare professional, is when they come to the door to greet you. You know, they will come out of their little consulting room and meet you at a doorway. You normally walk down a corridor, and they, you know, they make sure that they're watching you quite closely to look at your gait, your bearing, you know, everything else. They start from that moment. I think, you know, there are people talking in terms of even the person behind the counter is also reporting. They're reporting your arrival time, so they know how long you might be able to sit comfortably. You know, they may not necessarily monitor you all that time. You might end up laid out on the floor or something, but if they can say they've waited for 30 minutes, you know, in some ways there's certain bits outside control that you can't necessarily deal with. The one you can deal with, certainly, is if they are doing physical examination. I think this is a thing of actually breaking the problem down a bit. When they come to do things like wanting to check flexibility of limbs or something, I mean, that's something I'm looking at now, is that there are certain things they may want to do to me that I will not consent to. And that's okay, as long as I can get on record the reasons why I'm not consenting. It's basically that it will cause me tremendous and horrible pain for weeks. But you have to be on the ball to be able to get that out in wording, or, for best things, get that down on your initial application form, the questionnaire itself, and say, look, I may well decline these because of these reasons. Get it on record as soon as you can. I mean, I see no reason, you know, as far as I can see from their own manuals themselves, you can decline. But if you're not on the ball, they'll just say, patient refused. They won't give a meaning but they can give it a negative connotation by saying, I couldn't really do all of my work because they were blocking me.
Yeah, they refused to answer one of the descriptive questions. Yeah.
I mean, this is it as well. I know people, this is one thing we certainly have to keep addressing, and I think it's something we really have to keep doing in depth, is descriptors. The descriptors is the point scoring system. It's effectively one of the points where effectively what the doctor's words are changed into in order to decide if you have a number high enough to qualify you for benefits. If you know how each of those ones work, I know certainly, I think you said we've had a thank you on that just for highlighting, if you know how, if you are going to push this to appeal, and, and if you are, by all means, we can help you with research, we can talk to you personally. But the main point we would always push, and we don't have our resources, but other people have at the moment. There's a lot of great stuff out there. Look at the descriptors. It explains in depth what all these different things are and how the points should be awarded. But you have to really break them down. I think we've been through things of how you define walking, standing, even these things that may seem innocuous. They may be self-evident to you, but you're in a strange legal world where...
you're in their land, aren't you?
Well, you're in a medical legal world. Mm. So, things can mean one thing in the medical world and another thing in the legal world.
Confusion.
Oh, yes. And there's going to be a lot of that because it relies on that. I think, I actually heard, shockingly, one tactic from one of these medicals. I think I highlighted it up to you of basically how they were having a go at the person there supposedly taking notes.
No, they don't like anything like that, do they?
Well, I think it was interesting that, from what we picked up, it's a case of, this is someone who's, very wisely had a friend come along with them. And, I would say it's one thing as well, you have to sort out your strategies with them too.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I considered, and I've thrown this idea around with 2 or 3 people, including hopefully the person who would be in with me, and I'm saying, look, if you are there as a note taker, an advisor, a witness, however people choose to phrase their wording, you're there to work with the person. The disabled person you're with, you work to them. And I think, in some ways, this is common to some of the threads in TNS. No one else really exists to you. If you walk through the door into this medical room and this healthcare professional starts talking at you, you don't listen to them. You actually turn and look. You make eye contact with the person you're assisting. They answer for you. One thing I heard very much, because this was a thing of, this person who'd wandered in to help out was actually being fairly strongly attacked at the beginning. And it kept coming back. I think it came back 2 or 3 times, didn't it? And as far as I can see, it was always the same old thing. It was an attempt to undermine them and to disrupt the note-taking. And there's certain things of, you have to be so sharp on it. I think there was one I didn't pick up until it took me a couple of goes of literally, I think, this was from a different time. You can now record in there. But this was, I think, a gentleman was carrying a small transistor radio. And, that was the main line of questioning. But then there was a very long, what seemed to be a rehearsed speech of, oh, well, you're perfectly allowed to take notes and anything else, but the main evidence will be my report. Do you agree? And, there was definitely a prompting to question. And you have this third party saying yes. And by saying that yes, have just given, they have basically agreed to waive any rights to any other witness evidence.
Okay.
It's very subtle and very sneaky. Again, as I say, you get wordings changed. You have to watch, you may have a wording of a particular illness, and it suddenly becomes, you shorten the word. Like it's a case of, I have chronic back pain in 7 discs. I'm not going to say it's going to be extreme as this, but, they might sort of ask a couple of questions. Then they might come back and say, so this backache you have, you watch how they're trying to downgrade.
Okay, so it's gone from chronic pain to backache.
Yeah, to be honest, that's an extreme analogy.
Well, not really.
Yeah. So it's a case, it's like this. I would say in terms of, like another one of, say someone's got ME or MS or something, they will, excuse me, they may try and drag it on to a case of what effects. So you're feeling tired.
Yeah.
Always try and watch them. That this is what they're trying to do. I think there's another issue as well around the fact there's a computer system. I don't claim to have huge technical knowledge, but this decision isn't wholly made by a human being. Even the fact there's a healthcare professional there's a computer system that is directing part of the process. I think, I'm thinking in terms of how do we go about capturing as much information as possible of that process and telling them what is wanted before it happens, of saying, right, we have data protection acts, you have to freedom of information, etc. I want to know as much information as possible so that I can actually show what was decided by the computer, what was decided by that healthcare professional.
Yeah.
And then I want to be able to go to a tribunal and say, all right, you claim to have an assessment there, but only 40% of it is a man-made assessment. 60% of it's just computer-generated. It's just junk mail.
And the bit of the assessment that was done by a human being wasn't even a doctor.
And, I've done a fair bit of maths, but I don't want to start crunching numbers on this. But if you take this, as far as I can see, it's what's called an adaptive system. And it basically asks one question, and it depends on what answer you give as to what the next question after that will be.
Yeah.
So depending on a yes-no answer to one, you take a different branch through some sort of flowchart arrangement they've designed to take you through
to weed
the
you
final
out.
decision.
Yeah.
If you happen to take a wrong turn, if the doctor happens to misinterpret something you say at one question, you can turn off in another direction. There's certain things that can't be covered. I think there's definitely things coming out to say that almost for certain mental health is not sitting well with this computer system. It can't really cope with making decisions on those. I think there's other things of, certain ones. There's certain specific diseases that seem to be coming up. It may be just because those people are more communicative. They're talking amongst themselves. I know, like fibromyalgia people, and they have terrible problems. I personally know one person who suffers tremendously with that. It's specific cases are falling through.
Yeah, the whole assessment has to be looked at properly before you go in. But I just listened to you speak then, the thing that was, I was actually sat back and thought, Jesus, do you know what I mean? You have to do all this to get your benefit. It's incredible. The lengths that you're having to go to get something that should be yours is, having to watch what you say in the assessment, watch, the legal terms, watch how you walk in. I just, watch what the person with you says, doesn't say, can say, can't say, what you can say, what evidence they can use. It's just madness, really.
I think it's, even on that, I don't know what sort of success you can do with this. And it's playing, you're playing a hard game. They're all playing a hard game.
So prepare from the very start. So anyone that you know that's going to claim ESA or any benefit, keep everything. Keep a log of everything. Take a copy of your claim form, because when they come to you 6 months down the line, 6 weeks down the line for me, because I can remember nothing, you won't remember what you put in that form, and you really won't. You won't remember a conversation that you had 2 weeks before. You won't. Write it down. Keep your letters. Photocopy anything that you send to them. Send it recorded delivery. You actually don't have to send it recorded delivery. You can, I know because we used to do it at work, you can walk into the post office and ask them for a receipt for a letter, and that is proof of postage. So you could use that. Mind you, I would double check that. I don't know if DWP take them, do they?
Oh, they probably whine about it.
But you can do that, and it is something that I will check that. But yeah, keep everything, because if it is going to be this battle, if you are going to be dedicating, and you will have to dedicate time to doing this, if you're having to reach appeal stage, it would be so much easier if you had everything to hand.
I think it's a matter on that as well, you know, even if you have outside support. I mean, I've done it before by myself, so I can't comment about having someone in there with you. But, you know, however you go about it, you know, whatever they may say, let's look at the reality of this. Whatever they're saying, they're assessing you to say, can we put you to work? That's all they want to know. They don't really care what your doctors want to say. It may be a truth in this world of ours that, you know, doctors are still important people. You know, I have issues with doctors. I haven't done well recently with doctors, but I won't disrespect them. If I have a broken leg tomorrow, I know who I want to see. You know, there's simple realities here. Doctors are better placed to know what's good for us, but that power's been taken away from them. Now it's a case of we don't want them to have that, and we want to save a lot of money as well. But regardless of that, who's the best person placed to deal with your illness? It's nearly always just you yourself. You know, and I'm meeting so many people, it's a case of these people with no disrespect to anyone who's been suffering recently, I've been meeting people who've had, 10 more years. They've had 1 or 2 illnesses, they've grown. These people have actually not sat still. You know, disabled people, much as what people may want to think, and what I have seen evident to me, they've been on the internet. They've not been sat watching the telly. They've been out trying to find out what's going on and what is wrong with them and how they can fix it. And, some of them are having solutions. And some of them aren't having solutions, but we're doing our best to work either one out.
There's an awful lot on the internet about ATOS and the medical assessment, face-to-face assessment. That is
and it's not necessarily something for someone who's actually fairly new to this, I wouldn't suggest just typing ATOS into a search engine, because you're going to see a lot of things that are quite scary. A lot of them are quite real, but it's not necessarily things that you really need to get distracted on.
Yeah, true. You need to stick to the descriptors and get your appeal together based on those descriptors.
Yeah.
Back up those descriptors. Have something to back them up.
Yeah.
In your appeal.
I mean, make no bones about this. This isn't easy. You've got to sit down, roll your sleeves up, and sit down and do some paperwork. And they really like their paperwork, don't they? But we're seeing. I think there's another gentleman here. I'm not going to mention names. Recently come to us. I think 50 pages for an appeal.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
50 pages quoting regulations, quoting case law, quoting, amazing, mind-boggling things that I might just start getting a handle on next week. But absolutely phenomenal stuff. And if nothing else, it's going to be, if I can work out what's going on, it's going to be great.
But imagine being that upset that you would go to the lengths of doing that kind of submission. You've got to be pretty peeved.
You've got to have anger and energy.
Yeah, because it's not.
And, you know,
it's. Appeals aren't easy. They are not easy. I'm not going to pretend they are, because they're not. And working that hard, getting that kind of evidence together is not easy. That's hard work. Hats off to you.
Yeah, and I sincerely, I want to hear more on it. I can't say that I understand it all, but I really want to look at it all, and I really want to find out what happens. Because, if there's things in there that have the truth in, we want them.
Well, and this is, something that we keep saying, we want, solutions. That's what we want to do. We want to help people. That's why we're here. That's why we're giving our time. That's, what we want to do.
Indeed. Yeah. I think, actually looking at this, we're up against time now.
I think we're coming up to the hour, so I think we're going to chuck on a tune, and I think then Wildstorm's going to come on and talk about foraging. She
is, yes.
And then I think we're going to go back to, cover this again. I'm hoping Kazzer's been in touch, and I'm hoping that he would have sent Freeman Jacker, a Skype request. I think it's free-man Jack is his Skype name, so we could arrange a call for Kazzer to call in, because I know he's got some stuff he would like to share with us. So it'd be absolutely great if we could talk to him.
Yeah, anyone who wants to. We're going to check the chats now when the tune's on.
Yeah.
And, we can set things up, and you can have a word with Wildstorm. We can see what happens after that.
Excellent. Okay, well, Jack, you ready to stick on the tune? Excellent. Okay, we'll see you after the tune.
It's called Song of Arwen. This is dedicated to 2 or 3 people at the moment who are very seriously ill, including one small child, close friends of ours. This is just to try and raise some energy for solstice, maybe clear the rain a bit. Take it, Jack.
Hello, Kazzer. Have we got you?
Yep, I'm still here. Can hear you fine.
Okay, sorry, I think that there was a bit of a problem there, so thank you for phoning in.
No problem.
But I know that you were posting stuff last week and really wanted to talk to you about what you're up to.
Yeah, I was quite interested what you were saying last week and what you said before about the work programme. I have a few experiences on my own. There seem to be sort of different strategies, out there about how to sort of, ways for people to go, how to take it on. So, yeah, I found it quite interesting. I think it was Charlie that you were talking about.
Yes.
And, I think there were a couple of issues that you suggested, like when he was on it, there was no proper sort of health and safety certificate. Mm-hmm. So that was a good one. And also about not signing the consent declarations. That was another strategy. Obviously, because that's your choice about whether you want to consent or not. But obviously, they tend to pressurise people into that, I guess.
Yeah, it's pressure and, hurrying people along, I think, too.
Yeah. Sorry, am I a bit loud there still?
No, you're fine.
I'm fine, okay.
Yeah.
Well, my experience, I've had quite a long sort of rolling experience with them, dating back now to still when it was Flexible New Deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a few bad experiences with different so-called providers who basically just rank amateurs. And, complaint. And I think it was Serco then offered me bespoke provision. And then they reneged on that. So I've had a sort of a set of rolling complaints going all the way up the line. I like wasting my time like that. But now obviously we're into the work programme. And in my run-up to that, because of the complaints I'd had at the job centre, what I did is started changing the job centre I went to, which was for genuine reasons, because it's sort of like travel issues and because I had a complaint with this one job centre.
How easy was it to change a job centre, though?
Well, quite easy, because what I would do is I would sign off and then sign on and then request a different job centre.
Okay.
Citing my travel issues, And it was genuine and with genuine complaint issues with the one job centre. But actually, as I did a little tour of a sort of local job centres, I found that I was complaining about each and every one of them. So I've come back to settle with my nemesis job centre and got referred to the work programme. So what I've been doing actually is just when the sort of introductory invitation comes through for the first appointment, I've signed off. So I'm not actually in receipt of job seekers allowance for that day, and then wait a couple of days or even just a day and then sign on again. And I've done that a few times now, and lo and behold, no sanction thus far. So I'm actually, because I've got this complaint ongoing, which is now up to the ombudsman level, I'm sort of protecting myself from getting ensnared in the work program and them saying, "Oh well, you've got the work program now, you're fine," Plus, of course, the work program, as in the Flexible New Deal, won't offer any bona fide help or support whatsoever anyway. That's a central issue. So I'm not gonna kind of like perjure my outlook, if you see what I mean, by even consenting or going along to it. But I'm not doing anything wrong, because I'm not actually missing any appointment, because there isn't any appointment if you sign off. So there's a strategy there, and there's obviously a few issues and complications with it, but it is possible. So I thought it'd be good to come on and tell people that, there is that pathway there should you want to take it or be looking, in that sort of situation. Because I think once you're in the work program, then you're then ensnared. They can sort of say, "Oh, you're not cooperating," this or that, and then just target you for sanctioning. Whereas, I'm being a little bit more cautious about how I approach it and what I do.
So, at what point do you sign off then? When they send you the letter?
I sign on. What's actually happening now, I've done it a few times. I'm technically unemployed, claiming job seekers allowance for, say, 13 days out of 14. So I'll sign on, I'll get a letter, which will usually be for when I'm supposed to next sign on 2 weeks later. So on the 13th day, I'll go in, I'll sign off, and so thus there's no pending appointment, because you have to cancel each and any appointment. You're no longer in receipt. Okay. Obviously, I suppose the important thing, just a bit of advice on that. Obviously, people are dependent, as am I, on housing benefit and council tax benefit. So you've got to keep on top of that. That's I regard that as the most important part of my equation, is to keep that going. So if there's a break, they do like an auto stop on it, and you'll get an auto stop letter. So then I could email them. Council are quite fine, tend to be pretty cooperative, unlike Job Centre Plus. And then keep it going, or you have to take a bank statement in, so they can see you're not in receipt of anything. So that's pretty good. So that's the first bit, is to take care of housing benefit. But Job Centre Plus, they are, the bunch of miscreants they are, and a completely not fit for purpose entity. So dealing with them, so I'm going okay with that strategy thus far. So just to call in and add it as a strategy, but I've got some quite funny stories in dealing with them.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I just want to know, correct me if I'm wrong, is this a case of you actually sign off every fortnight, so you're only claimed for the 13 days every single time?
More or less, yeah.
Really? They must get quite stroppy with you once they start to see that as a pattern, do they not?
Well, we're just coming to that stage now, because I was... obviously, I've got this previous offer and a previous complaint ongoing, and that's an issue in the background itself, because they're not allowed, by their own policy, they're not allowed to interfere with the outcome of any complaint process. So, but it's at the ombudsman at the moment. But they don't seem to care about that sort of stuff, as you well know.
Absolutely.
So I'm protecting that So I'm kind of sanctioning myself a tenner every 2 weeks, and I hope to get that back in the future, whether I do or not. I suppose I'm okay in that I live quite frugally, so I can just about manage that, although, there are other bills looming, etc. So yes, that's what I'm doing, and that's now coming to the fore. Obviously, I've had a few fun letters from the provider and their third-party provider saying, you haven't attended this, mandatory that. So I've sent some humorous letters to them. I mean, the letters I've had from them are completely shoddy. No address, no date, no sign, no name, sort of thing. It's complete amateur night, which is quite amusing. I did actually get a letter today, which was quite interesting, from my local job centre itself. Which I'm going to have a field day on, telling me. They did write, the provider wrote saying a doubt has arisen on your claim, etc., etc. But funnily enough, no sanction was taken. Now the job centre have written that, saying that because you failed to attend an employment programme, which is not true actually, because I haven't failed to attend anything, because I wasn't obliged to attend anything because I wasn't in receipt of job seekers allowance. So that's going to be a rather fun. Going to really enjoy replying to that one.
You must keep us up to date with how you get on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. Obviously, I would say to people doing that, you need to have a very clear sort of calendar list of dates of when and where, when you sign on, when you sign off, where you're doing, what you're doing. Keep on top if there's any late payment. There've been a couple of late payments. Keep on top of the housing benefit. I've got a few complaints ongoing, so what I do is I keep a separate file for each. So I've got all of the paperwork, everything I've sent and received. So you've got to be quite organised about it, and it's quite it's quite straightforward. So that's a doable strategy, and of course you don't then allow yourself to be ensnared by the work program or any third party. I mean, I know it's sort of quite an issue for the sovereigns out there listening, because obviously, normally, yes, you can return to sender things and decide who you want to contract with. But when you're unemployed, you have no choice really but to deal with these people. So you've got to be a bit savvy how you deal with them. Like you were saying earlier, they constantly try to reframe and downgrade any complaint. I've had that to the hilt.
I like the ideas of what you're talking about. I think it does actually touch on one. I'm not sure if we covered it in the past, or it may have just been passed privately on a couple of cases, because I noticed I came across one, I think a slightly toned down version of yours, maybe for someone who doesn't have the time or the energy to do as much every fortnight. But I know someone has said, in a sense of, I know now the job centre are very keen that you're punctual. And if someone is late, you are in serious danger of a sanction. If you happen to be late, they basically say, if you can't be there within that time frame, don't walk in the door. Or if you can, walk in the door, print off a ticket to stamp a time.
Is this at the job centre?
And walk out. But if you sign off, I think, this is a case of if you've missed your appointment time, sign off, claim your 13 days money, do another reclaim, because the rapid reclaim system is there. You can lose 1 or 2 days money, but you don't put yourself at risk of a sanction.
Yeah. Are you talking about being late at the work programme or being late at the job centre? I've
heard people say even in terms of when you're turning up to sign.
Right.
I'm saying I know you have a different strategy of going at this.
Yeah.
For other people who may not necessarily have the energy, they may say, I can't deal with that paperwork. I'll just go sign on. And there are people who realistically, they may consider if there's a lot of daunting paperwork, it might not be worth their while.
Yeah, well, it's not too difficult if you're quite well organised. I see there's a comment on the chat box by Blue Skies. They're saying it's a bit of an ache to do that and make it work for yourself. It is a bit sort of more proactive, But in terms of the sovereign side, for me, it's about, I prefer to be, I've got this obviously complaint ongoing that I don't want to perjure myself, but I want to be in control of what I do. So I want to say when I do something and when I don't do something. I'm certainly not going to go to a third-party provider who I can guarantee won't be qualified, won't have any experience, recruitment, professional or help or support of any kind, and it'll be more of a pain for me to waste a day every week or every other week, having my time wasted and having my data spread all over the place like marmalade, so I'd rather do that. Don't get me wrong, if there was a properly qualified recruitment professional that really knew their stuff and could be helpful, I'd be very happy to talk to them. But obviously, where I am, they just don't provide that in the area where I am, in the surrounding areas. It's all complete amateur night, and you're being treated as a profit unit. So you're not being treated, well, you're somebody, you've got these skills and experience, you've got lots of qualifications, we're really going to do our best for you, we'll find some vacancies you haven't, maybe there's a scheme or something that will really help your CV, something that would get you back on track. I recognise that's not accessible in the area where I am, and I'm not going to allow some amateur night idiot to screw up my life or mess me around. So the choice I make is to be in control myself, and do I decide when I decide? And yeah, it's a bit proactive. You're right, I'm losing money because I'm losing that day every 2 weeks. And I've been a bit lazy in the past, and I've lost 2 or 3 days, but that's fine, yeah.
But even with that, in that respect, it's a case of that, you are prepared to actually put some time in, deal with paperwork.
Yeah, it's not that complicated, really.
It's not, I don't know if people may feel that's gaming the system, but it's a case of if it's a perfect, valid way to deal with them.
Yeah.
And it works for you, and you want to put the time into that. I don't see any problem with that.
Well,
it's not like that they actually play fair in most things anyway.
Exactly. I mean, they're quite happy to try and trip you up, and with the sanctions, they actually deliberately try and target people. So I'm actually putting up a bit of a wall and saying, well, I'm not going to give you the excuse to target me. All it is a rapid reclaim call. You go in to get your things started again. They'll have you on the system, so your job seekers route is the same. Yes, we'll do that, and then it's like, come back for your next sign date in 2 weeks. If you get the letter for the appointment, you then go in. Hi, how you doing? I'd like to sign off today. Could you make sure you sign me off today? And if you get an auto stop from the housing benefit, quick email there. Yes, I've had decided to have a little bit of a break. I had a gap. I was signing off for these dates, signing off for these dates. If you'd like me to come in with a summary copy of my bank statement, as you have done before, that's fine. I can come in. So that's no problem. I'm quite happy to do that.
I think it's a solution. It's your solution. It could be a solution for a lot of other people. It won't be for others. And I think it's great that you're doing it. You have to do what you have to do. If it's your way, you do it.
I think it does encourage hope that there's another way of dealing with things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like the solutions that you've covered so far, but I did feel you're also opening up yourself to being ensnared by them saying, well, we've asked you to do this on the work programme, you don't want to do it, or you don't want to consent to this, you're not cooperating, so we're going to sanction you anyway. I think they're sort of, from the letter I've just had, they're gearing up to try to sanction me, but they've tried that 3 times before with different things, and I've won all of the appeals, and I took one to a tribunal over Christmas, where they tried to cut me out of 2 weeks' money, and I've won that as well. So, if you can...
Yeah, Charlie still hasn't. Charlie got paid today. Yeah, sorry, just an update on Charlie. He got paid today, so he wasn't sanctioned either. So the health and safety route can and does work. So if you are put on a placement, make sure you ask them for up-to-date health and safety, their health and safety folder. Yeah. You want risk assessments for everything that they want you to do. You know, that route works.
I think
it works for you.
Yeah, they're both good. It's how you want to personally play it. I mean, I'm okay. I can last for sort of 2 or 3 weeks. So if they sanction me for say a couple of weeks, I wouldn't starve. Put it that way. I can hold out with that. So I can understand for people that can't do that. Fair enough. You might be forced to sort of cooperate with the with the Nazis. But it's how you want to play. Whatever your situation. I live very frugally here. I mean, my housing benefit doesn't quite cover the rent, and it's been a bit of a struggle to get the car insurance. I ran out of heating oil a while back, and I haven't bought any, that sort of thing. So it's how people want to play it and which direction they want to take it. But there are ways and methods to stand up to these people, because obviously their approach, they're a complete not fit for purpose entity anyway. So people should have the confidence to stand up to them and not be pushed around by them. I'm not going to be pushed around by them. And also I found in letters, if you use the Freedom of Information Act as well as subject access requests, you can use that as a good strategy to get answers to questions. So it kind of puts them in their place and controls what they can do. Once you stand up to them and you get known for being quite savvy, they tend not to treat you disrespectfully or try anything on with you unless they think they can get away with it, which they won't with me,
Yeah, that's true. I think if you show, not even in a rude way, as long as you show that, then they do leave you alone to a degree.
Yeah, I'm always polite with them, but if anybody gets sort of arsey with me or thinks they can have their little power trip, fine, let's go to Chinatown. It's no problem.
How long have you been doing this for? How long have you been signing on and off like this for?
Well, I've been signing on for quite a while. I don't want to give the game away, just you never know who's listening.
No.
But let's say I've done this a few times. The changing job centre seemed to work quite well because it was so inefficient.
Yeah.
Transferring details over. There was quite a delay just with the competence with that. So I thought, well, that's okay. And that was quite a good thing as well, because I could go to different recruitment agencies and, I applied for a few different jobs that way. So I saw it as just, going to different places and applying for different jobs. The job centre was actually secondary. But now I've decided, right, I'm going to face the beast and I'm going to face it head on. So I've gone to my nemesis job centre with my nemesis job centre manager. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to do this.
Come on, then.
Yeah, I'm not backing down. It's obvious what I'm doing. But actually, if I sign off, I'm not actually obligated to have your XYZ appointment for ABC or whatever. So, that'll be an interesting thing if they change that. They might change that rule. The letter I got was quite interesting, which had like 3 lines on it. So it looks like they might gear up to that. But at the moment, there is a line to be crossed. Am I obligated to something if I'm not in receipt of the benefit for which that thing is, linked into?
Well, no, absolutely not. You have to be in receipt of one of those benefits to be put onto the work programme.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're running out of time here. I'd like to come on again because I've got some lovely stories about things that have happened in different job centres I've visited. And perhaps it might help people be a bit more confident in their approach to them.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I really would like you to come back on.
Yeah, well, I feel now, because, before, people, I suppose I was like everybody else, I felt a bit intimidated by them and a bit nervous challenging them. But now I've been messed around so much with them, I'm pretty clued up and I've got my shit together. So I'm totally confident in dealing with them, not letting them get away with anything. You give these people an inch, they'll take a mile. But it really is quite disgusting. They'll target people that are vulnerable or financially vulnerable or in a vulnerable position with sanctions. There's no justification at all whatsoever. They actually get in the way of my job seeking. I like to be free of any problems with my mind so I can concentrate on job seeking. These people just interfere with what I'm trying to do. I'm genuinely complying with. I've never sort of claimed anything that I'm not entitled to. And I'm
sorry, I think we have to.
Okay.
I'm really sorry, but I think we have to finish off. All right.
Thanks so much for having me on, anyway.
Can you stay on and we'll continue to chat? Hopefully we can get something else discussed and maybe see what we can do for the next show as well.
Excellent.
Well, nice to be on. Thanks very much for having me.
No worries. Hang on there. We will keep talking.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. This has been Welfare on tnsradio.ning.com. You can email us at team@welfare.org.uk. Cheers. Thanks to tnsradio.ning.com and scottishsovereignsontheland.ning.com. See you, folks, and apologies for not answering the couple of questions. I will get in the chat box.
Declare independence. Don't let them do that to you. Declare independence. Don't let them do that to you.